All right, so our next card is going to be using die cuts. And it really doesn't matter what die cut you use. I do tend to choose more simple designs like silhouettes or just a single butterfly. Again, I'm not trying to take away from the jelly print background. I want them to complement each other. So I tend to choose more simple dies to use with this. Now I'm going to do this card here with the die cut out of glitter cardstock. The only difference with these ones is the gold in here is vellum. So I've already got my the silhouettes that match the card base already cut. I'm going to take my piece of glitter cardstock here. This is the thick glitter cardstock from American Crafts. You could definitely use the thinner stuff as well if you have it. For this particular one, I just like the way the glitter cardstock complements the background that's got a little bit of a pearl shimmer to it. So I'm going to die cut it. And I went through twice only so that it would end on this side rather than the other. Try not to drop your plates on the floor. All right, so it comes right out of the die, super, super easy. I know a lot of people think that die cutting glitter cardstock is super hard, but it's really not. If you have any bits left in your die, this is your friend for taking those bits out, but it all came out, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm just using a little die pick to pick out any little bits that are sticking out there. There we go. Now let's get rid of those and let's start gluing our card together. Now I'm going to glue it to this side simply because I want to put my block on top of it to hold everything in place to dry, for the glue to dry while I do my sentiment. So get all the pieces ready, get my glue ready. Because I'm going to be lifting it up a couple times, I'm just going to bring my cup over. And you'll see I store my glue so that the tip is down, so that the glue is always at the tip and I don't have to wait for it to flow there. This is especially handy when you get to the end of your bottle, because the glue sometimes tends to get a little bit thicker, and it's nice to not have to, oh, that fell out. Well, I flipped it over. It's nice to not have to constantly wait for your glue to go to the tip. All right, so now this, typically I would wait for this to dry a little bit longer so that it dries flat. The moisture tends to make the cardstock curl a tiny little bit. So now I'm just going to glue my die cuts however I want them. And what I did with this one is I actually flipped it so that I didn't have three all exactly the same way. You could also use 3 different flowers if you chose. The set that this is from has several different ones to choose from, so you could absolutely choose a few different silhouettes without having to get multiple dies. And I just put the glue on the wrong side, so we're going to go with this anyways. I'm just going to place it a little bit farther down. So obviously if you're going to mirror your dies and flip them over, make sure you put your glue on the right side. It's very helpful. Now really what I could have done if it was very important is I could have waited for that glue to dry and then just glue the other side, because this glue dries completely clear and it dries matte, so you wouldn't have seen that there was glue there. But just in the interest of time, I didn't want to wait to do that. So get the die out of the way. Now we're going to put the mat on here. Now I happen to have the extra piece left over from the last one I did, so I'm just going to use it. And I'm using my sentiments all from the same set. There's a lot of choices in that set, so I like it. And for this particular class, there was enough choice that I didn't have all exactly the same sentiment. And I could take the trimmer out to trim this, or I could just trim it with the scissors. Your choice. Now let's get some foam pop dots. Now, I'll often use the dots, but when I get to a point like this where I have some of the backing, there's nothing wrong with the backing, so I like to use that as well. Might as well get some use out of it. There's no point in throwing it out. And frankly, whoever you give your cards to are not going to see that, and if they do, they're definitely not appreciating your cards. So put your sentiment on there. Now I've got a couple stems that go below the card, and I'm just going to snip them off like that. So there we go. I will let this sit for a little while longer to let that glue completely dry, just because of the different layers of dies that wants to pull up a little bit. But there you go. Another card with some very simple die cuts.